RotoGrinders. Welcome to DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD. If you want to follow me there on Twitter, and it's Monday, you know what we do on Monday. We're bringing James McCool, Mondays with McCool, James McCool, the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass that you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. I see you guys in the YouTube chat. A little not as busy this morning. People hung over, I guess, from yesterday's awful NFL slate. Awful football product. It got Hog Lawrence in there, Pug Daddy, Rob F, Mark's Mimic, Quinn Williams, Card Fan. How you doing? Hit the thumbs up button as usual. Emily thumbs, subscribe, scribes, hit the bell, hit anything. Hit your screen, knock yourselves out. James, I'm surprised I didn't lose as much money as I thought I would yesterday with the games that I primarily played. It was a losing slate, but not that bad. My overall weekend was break even between soccer, MMA, and NFL. I broke even the entire, it's like I could have not played anything and I ended up with the same amount of money. I don't know what you did yesterday, but my main focus was on the late games, and it's like I have PMR, so I knew going into the 4 p.m. games that I was dead to win because when you don't have any Jonathan Taylor, just like okay, I just hope let's see if I can make some money. I got Patrick Mahomes, I got Dak Prescott, I got Derek Carr.
Got Joe Burrow.
I had a little bit of Joe Burrow. They could do it for me. And then I also had a couple of Tua lineups and I had a couple of Jimmy G lineups.
All right.
Those are the better lineups, but I didn't expect that the two highest total games on the slate to come in under, and one of them that Chiefs Cowboys game came in half as high. The game ended with 28 points total when the total was 56.5. And when that happens, not going to work out very, very well. And and then the Bengals Raiders game, almost all the scores come rushing. So it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out very well. And then also the San Francisco teams, I played a lot of Garoppolo plus Wilson plus pass catch, plus like that type of lineup. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help when Jimmy G can't throw a simple ball to Jeff Wilson open in the end zone. Not like that would have made that much of a difference anyway.
It would have made you feel a little bit better though.
Right. Well, I didn't expect that to have to play Jeff Wilson and Deebo Samuel, and then end up capturing all of the 49ers rushing yards in that combination. So I'm going to have to assume that you were somewhat on the same page as far as you play 3 teams.
I do.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you have Jonathan Taylor in any of those 3?
I did not.
Okay.
So automatically, life is very, very hard. Here's the thing. I played really good plays yesterday, Jordan. They did not have good results. I focused on late games as well, focus on that Chiefs Cowboys game, which of course, 57 over under. You're going to be focusing on there, especially with no Amari Cooper, narrower target tree. We're thinking that it's going to be plenty of CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. And then I thought Dalton Schultz would be the one that would be getting a bit more targets, not Cedric Wilson, but that's not here nor there. Focus on that game. Focus on Las Vegas versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati has been one of the highest passover expectation teams in the league, especially in the red zone over the last 4 weeks. So they had an obscenely high passing touchdown ratio going into the game, going up against Las Vegas, who's a very pass happy team as well, and showed how bad they can actually be against other passing teams. And then I had some Seahawks stacks as well up against the Cardinals. So I was going in, that started out the slate had plenty of AJ Dillon, had pleny of Jeff Wilson and Mark Ingram. I think I only used those 3 running backs. I didn't really see any reason to get away from those 3 when I was stacking up and being different on the way that I was stacking later games anyway. And then, Jonathan Taylor scores 1 touchdown. And I'm like, well, whatever. He's really expensive. Doesn't matter. Scores 2 touchdowns. I'm like, all right, he has 20 in the first quarter. But, last week he had 20 to start the half, and then he finished with 25. It's like, okay, we're still fine. And then I'm at the pay dirt meetup because I had a meetup with my subscribers yesterday. We went to Top Golf. We golfed, we ate, we watched the game, stuff like that. I didn't have my phone on me for maybe an hour. And then I come back and I see my notifications, and the top notification is Jonathan Taylor 2-yard rushing touchdown. I'm like, oh man, he scored 3. And then I opened up my notifications and saw 2 more Jonathan Taylor touchdowns. And I'm like, I'm dead.
But you're not dead. I mean, he's like 3% owned. You're dead for first place, but you're not like dead. It's not like close. When people go like, I hate when people do like no Taylor, no cash. It's like there's only 3% owned. It's like no cash, no Taylor, no first place. Sure, okay, I can see that, but you're not dead.
But what I was saying was, and I told it to the people that I was with, and I even said it in Discord as well. I'm like, okay, look, Jonathan Taylor crushing sucks. Like, you're probably not going to win your GPP right now, but you couldn't really fit him with the desirable stacks. It was hard. He was really expensive. So fitting him with a Chief stack, like your aggregate median with Jonathan Taylor and a Chief stack was probably going to be significantly less than if you had AJ Dillon and Mark Ingram or AJ Dillon and Jeff Wilson, whatever. So you would have had to hope that one of the mostly cheaper stacks goes off in order for him to actually like really decimate the slate. And like you said, he was only 3% owned. So, I mean, for me, when I say I'm dead, it means that like, since I play to win GPPs, like I'm dead. I know that I'm not winning a GPP without Taylor there. But I still had hope, Jordan. I still had hope.
Did you cash any of your 3 lineups?
I absolutely did not. No, because I had a Chiefs stack, I had a Seahawks stack, and I had a Cincinnati stack. Yeah, and it's like dead. So it is weird.
And then what were your running backs for all 3 lineups?
Jeff Wilson, Mark Ingram, and AJ Dillon.
Oh, so you just played the chalk combination.
Yeah, I didn't care. Well, so usually when I am building out stuff, I'll look at the models and I'll say, okay, well, so this stack looks like it's going to be high owned. This stack looks like it's going to be under owned. This stack looks like I can look at my models. I can look at my stacks because I have it set up in a way that gives the aggregate ownership, the salary, and the projection of the stacks. And the thing was that this week, like the top 7 stacks were all the highest owned stacks and all my highest projected stacks. So I'm like, I just can't get away from it. Like if I want to be different, I'm going to have to drop all the way down to a Chicago stack. And even if I had done that with Darnell Mooney, who crushed, it would have had Justin Fields and Cole Kmet. And like Justin Fields got injured and Cole Kmet was nothing. So this was one of those slates where I was fine eating the chalk. I didn't care about that. I had low owned pieces around the chalk, so I didn't mind that. But I was mostly just on the chalk. The chalk projected well. It looked really, really good. And I just wanted to be different elsewhere because there was nothing outside of Seattle stack. The Seattle stack was one of the things I had projected highly and was lower owned. So I definitely wanted a piece of that. But even that, Russell Wilson is basically just Geno Smith's younger brother that's worse right now. So that didn't work out either. But I was fine eating all the chalk this week. I thought that it projected well. I thought that they were in good spots. I didn't think there was any reason to get away from chalk, especially considering how high the team totals were, how high the projections were. A lot of the stacks were affordable. Like Cincinnati stack, if you go Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, that costs less than $20K this week. And that was very, very attainable. Kansas City was obscenely expensive as always, but Seattle stack was less than 18,000. Green Bay stack was 19,000. A Dallas stack was 19,000. Like you didn't have salary issues in terms of getting these stacks. So there wasn't much of a reason to fade them in my eyes.
Well, I just saw the running backs like Dillon, Wilson, and Ingram with a chalky 3 running backs. But I mean, looking at my aggregate, projection wise. In that range, you also had Gaskin, Montgomery, and Connor.
I will say I really, really liked Miles Sanders this week too.
Miles Sanders, why?
Well, with how run heavy Philadelphia has been in his absence, him coming back into that game script would have been really nice. And he had really, really good opportunity. It's just he didn't get any of the rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts got all of them. So I did like him as like a super, super low in play. I didn't have him because I just went with Jeff Wilson. But if I'd have had like 10 lineups, I probably would have had a couple of him for sure.
What did you have Miles Sanders projected for?
13, I think.
Okay, 11.3. So that's not that dramatic. Like I saw in my projections here, like I have AJ Dillon at 19.9,
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson 17.4, Ingram 17.2,
Sure.
Gaskin 17.4, Montgomery 16.8, James Conner 17.6. So like the Gaskin, Montgomery, and Connor, I had about half as owned, projected owned as Dillon, Wilson, and Ingram. Although Dillon, Wilson, and Ingram projected very slightly better.
Sure.
Like most of my lineups, like I didn't play like all three of those together. Like I was playing one or two of the other two running backs because for me to be able, like, look, AJ Dillon's 32% owned projected.
Yeah.
Over here to go from him at 6,200 to James Conner at 6,100, same exact price. You dump 16 percentage points in ownership, and you're only sacrificing what 2.5 points or something like that. So like you do that. And then you do something wide receiver, and then you're good. Like I saw the ability to drop down to these other three running backs. That's why you didn't get much of I didn't get much of McCaffrey, or Chubb, or Cook, or obviously Taylor, like any of the high priced running backs, because
there's very little reason to pay all the way up to them. In terms of roster construction, it just didn't. It
didn't make sense to it. Anytime that I looked at lineups where I was paying up at one or like two running back spots, you're giving up like 8 points in projection to do so. And you're not even like the ownership doesn't really even change that much because McCaffrey was owned and Taylor wasn't, but like it feels like there were more higher priced wide receivers to use than lower priced wide receivers to use.
Yeah.
So it's like underneath like Michael Gallup at 4,200. Like no one project. I mean, maybe Bateman a little, maybe Rashard Higgins. If you want to take that shot.
Yeah.
It anytime I was running lineups with higher price running backs, it would just sacrifice points for no ownership. I mean, like you just weren't getting even an ownership discount there. So that's why I'm going to rotate these guys in. Most of my lineups did not have Dillon, Wilson, and Ingram together.
Sure.
I had a lot of David Montgomery, who obviously did not get there, but David Montgomery was in a similar situation as any of these other guys. I mean, like 90% of the snaps, and just obviously Baltimore had the ball most of the game. I mean, that game was awful.
Which, and especially with Tyler Huntley in there, you can't expect them to be able to just hold the ball the entire time.
Well, it's I mean, I expected it to be a bad game. It's just a matter of like, the big plays were actually on the Bears side with Mooney and Goodwin.
Yeah.
On those two, like that sped up the game, and it still went way under.
Yeah.
But I'm saying at 5,500 for that start, like what makes him that much different from Ingram? Like nothing. I mean, what does it make it any different than Jeff Wilson or even AJ Dillon or any of these guys?
The only reason I had David Montgomery lower was because I have Chicago is very pass happy in the red zone. Outside of that, you're right. I mean, the workload is probably the same.
Right.
And James Conner I had projected up there with those guys as well. Like I had James Conner basically projected the same as Mark Ingram. I had Josh Jacobs projected well, like up there near, not near AJ Dillon, but for that price, like I had Josh Jacobs projected well. There were ways to pivot for sure. And I don't think there's anything wrong with going with James Conner or whoever if you wanted to get different. I just don't think that you really needed to get that different. There are other spots that you could have gotten different.
So where were you? Where were you getting? It seemed like you were playing chalky or stacks. So where are you getting different?
Let's go to my lineups.
It's like you're playing all three chalk running backs, and you're playing the Kansas City Dallas game. I'm like, what? Where are you getting different?
That's a good question. Exactly. let's see. So in my Arizona stack, in my Seattle stack is really low owned. It was Russell Wilson with Tyler Lockett and Christian Kirk. None of them were over 10% owned.
Okay, I get that. Like that lineup, I get. Okay,
yeah,
so like
I paired that with AJ Dillon, Jeff Wilson, and Travis Kelce with CeeDee Lamb. So that one was different. In my Cincinnati stack, Joe Burrow was only 9% owned. Jamar Chase is only 13. T. Higgins only 12. And then I had Emmanuel Sanders and Michael Pittman at 5%.
So that makes it different. Okay, I could see that there.
5 and 4. And then I had Darren Waller only 5% owned, which is wild, by the way. My chalkiest lineup was the Cowboys lineup, where I had Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. I paired it with T. Higgins and Bryan Edwards.
Okay.
So with Travis Kelce. And even that, like this lineup, Travis Kelce is only 14% owned. Like that's not even owned. T. Higgins is only 12% owned. Like I think that people kind of got in their own heads and got away from those stacks for some reason. Cincinnati put up 32 points. T. Higgins only had 3.5. We might have to give up on T. Higgins as a community, by the way. I think that we're getting into Robbie Anderson territory here of like, yeah, sure, the air yards are there, but air yards don't put food on the table. But I was different enough that there wasn't really much of a reason for me to get away. I only used 2 of those. I had wide receiver or tight end. I did use. No,
you didn't use all 3. You weren't using all 3 in one line.
No, just in my 3 lineups, I had only those 3. So I only used 2 running backs. In my Seattle stack, I actually went 2 tight end because I had Travis Kelce in the flex.
Okay, so your lineups aren't that bad. Okay,
no, they're fine. Like I didn't.
I'm thinking of you're using all 3 of those.
I know,
and you're using chalky stat. Like you're right. The Russell Wilson one isn't chalk, so the Russell Wilson one I give you credit for. I played a lot of secondary.
Even the other 2, like you and I talk about it all the time. You don't have to fade chalk.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make sure that you're different somewhere or somehow.
Yeah, but yesterday you had to be different everywhere.
Well, yeah, the Million Maker winner with the absolute guspa to go Cam Newton with Tommy Tremble as his stack.
No, this lineup is not a long term.
It's hilarious though.
It's the lowest total lineup ownership I've ever seen win any large field contest in any.
Is it lower than the one last year where everyone was like, "That's the worst lineup that I've ever"?
No, this is way lower. Look at how much owners. Look, it's not. Let's do the math. Like 9 plus 4. This is about 4. We'll estimate 4. Let's see. We got 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 18 plus 5, 23, 24, 25, 26. It's a total lineup ownership of like 28%.
It's incredible.
It's the lowest I've ever. I mean, it's lower than I've ever seen when like the slant or even like NBA. Obviously, NBA is a little bit different. Yeah,
that is hilarious.
Good luck. I mean,
no, that person should never play DFS ever again.
Right. Yeah, there you go. That's a better way to put it.
Incredible stuff. I mean, that is and I'm not saying this is like people should try to replicate this, but that is a masterpiece.
Yeah, but a masterpiece it's random. It's bash your head against the keyboard.
That dude, Jackson Pollock made a career on that.
So what? Well, but the point I think the point we're making is that has nothing to do with there's no point in analyzing this line.
No, absolutely not.
It's people throw random crap into the millie. I mean, whatever. There's no discernible strategic nor mathematical reason why this line. Like if you were to run a simulation on this contest with the actual lineups, they're all 207,121 lineups, and you ran a simulation of the contest using some aggregate projection. So like you're not even a bias, not even, that doesn't have Donovan Peoples-Jones with 8,000 points or something. You just do it just a complete aggregate.
Yeah.
And you run the exact same contest 50,000, 100,000 times. This lineup is a negative. It's a negative. This is a negative lineup.
Okay, I mean, hold on. He had 3 entries. What are his other entries?
Jackson 205.
Yeah.
This may take a second because there's a lot of entries.
Yeah. No, but I want to see this.
Okay, now they scored very low. We could see the let's see. I could bring that up. Ownership was Jackson. Here we go. So I don't know what the other two lineups were exactly. Right. So AJ Brown in two of them, except for that one, obviously. Tommy Tremble, AJ Dillon, David Montgomery. Right. The other two we saw, the anonymous was 129 and 99. Like the other two didn't even cash. Michael Carter, John Bates.
My God.
There's three lineups. Just Cam Newton.
Just never play DFS ever again. That like you have hit it. That's all that you ever need to do. If you cashed in on 0.05% Tommy Tremble for $1 million, good.
Well, it wasn't Tommy Tremble that did anything.
No, it wasn't. But what I'm saying is like,
here are the lineups. We could click on anonymous and we could see them.
All right.
So it's another Cam Newton, AJ Dillon, David Montgomery, Jamar Chase, and Debo, AJ Brown is the 99 one with McCaffrey, Brown, like Alex Collins, Tyler Huntley.
Oh, wow.
I don't. It's keyboard mashing.
I mean, this man went into the Millie Maker. This man or woman, could be a woman, goes into the Millie Maker and says, you know what? I have three lineups. Two of them are going to be Cam Newton, Tommy Tremble. I'm just doing it.
That's not that to me. You're two people. You're focusing too much on the plays.
No, dude. I'm just making.
What about the lineup?
This is not analysis. We just said there's no analysis to be done here. I am in awe of this. It's insane and impressive, and just it is. Because I can't analyze it because I don't know what to say other than
there's no point in it. That's the point. Like Angelo Strayface in chat. It's like, don't we want these people to keep playing? Let's not discourage these people too much. They're not watching this show. And
no, absolutely not.
This is also a teaching show. Like the point is if this wasn't a teaching show, I wouldn't give a crap. But it's like a lot of people go, let me take a look at what won the million. What did they do strategically? There's not like we could, if we plug this in and we simulated this out, this lineup is a long-term loser. So like that doesn't mean you can't win with the negative EV. I mean, dude, that's what casino games. If you go to the slot machine, you could win $5 million on a pull of a slot machine, even though it's negative EV. I mean, the more you keep on playing, the more likely you are going to lose. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to 100-sided die. I'm going to pay you 10-1, right? Heavily negative EV. And then you go 3 and I roll it and it's 3 and then you win and then you walk away. It's like, look, I can make money. I mean, like it still makes it negative EV. Like you shouldn't continue to play that game, right? So that's the point that I'm making. Like it's just like the one that was posted in chat on FanDuel. Like if you run everything, you're going to lose more money with that lineup. Like if you played the slate out 1 million times, you'd come out a loser. So the point is to build lineups that if you play the slate out 1 million times, you come out a winner. And then you try to play those types of lineups every slate that you play. So you're building up this sample size so that you can make money playing DFS. So it's not about the play. To me, if you played Cam Newton plus Tommy Tremble, like I could go to my projections right now. Right? My aggregated projections. Click in Cam Newton. Click in Tommy Tremble. I don't even know where the hell he would be. Tremble, the 3-point projection. And just run the optimal. Just run optimize. Newton, Tremble, Wilson, Gaskin, Higgins, Hill, Adams, Dillon, Brown. Like,
yeah, it's not the worst.
Right. Then I would find if you want to create some correlation, you have a McLaurin in there, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to put McLaurin in, right? To get the Washington side. And then we press the button. Okay. Now we're down to 143 as a projection.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Ingram, Wilson, Chase, Adams, and Dillon and the Browns defense with them.
Yeah.
Like you play this lineup Okay. I think there's a
It's
plus EV
completely
lineup.
surrounded by chalk. Like, you just got different on your sack, and that's
Right.
yeah.
And that's perfectly fine. And then we take a look at Jonathan Taylor. Let's say it's like, okay, I'm going to take a shot on Jonathan Taylor, which is perfectly fine to do so. Okay. So you want to pay up at running back and take a shot, even though he projects, understand he's 8,300. And in my aggregate, he projects lower than AJ Dillon, who is $2,100 cheaper. So you can be giving up projection by playing him. Okay. So I'm going to plug in Taylor. Now press it. Let's see what the lineup. Now I'm down to 139.97. And you see here, the ownership hasn't changed all that much. Right. So now we got Newton, Wilson, Gallup, Adams, Dillon, Browns in with all of those. So now you're like, well, I'm not going to play Gallup. Right. I'm not going to let's take a look at his lineup. Then we're going to go. I'm going to play Miles Sanders now. Right. Or DeAndre. So I'm going to play DeAndre Swift with the Lions defense. Okay, so now we're going to go to DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, click there. And then we're going to go to the Lions defense because they're correlated, right? Okay, we got to do that. Okay. Now we're down to 131.27.
But under 100% aggregate ownership.
Right. And under 100%. So now you can just jam in Wilson, Gallup, and Adams and then even that lineup, I'd go, it's a bad lineup, but it's not horrible. Right. I'd be like, okay, you got different. You definitely got different. At least you played like the three best values on the slate with that. And then you go, no, I don't want to do that. I got to play Miles Sanders also. I got to play Miles Sanders. So I'm going to plug in Miles Sanders. Like, I don't want to play Jeff Wilson. Right. I could see someone doing a 1v1 of like, well, Jeff Wilson's 5,100 and Miles Sanders is 5,000. I'm just, how often is one guy going to beat the other guy? Okay, fine. Okay, you do that also. So now I do that. Now I plug that in, press the button, right? And now I still get Gallup and Adams, right? Leaving 400 on the table. Now we're down to 66% ownership, but our projection is down to 125.
Yeah.
Okay. The top projection on the slate with a stack is like 151.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're sacrificing 26 points in projection. Yeah, you're getting only 66 ownership. But even now at this point, you're like, why don't you just put in Gallup and Adams? I don't want to play Adams. I want to be different, right? I want to play Justin Jefferson instead, right? You're probably sacrificing 6 points by just doing this, right? Okay, now I'm going to play Jefferson. Now I got one slot. Who would be the last guy in my lineup then? Okay, still Michael Gallup. And I'd be down to 119.49 at 49% aggregate ownership based on our RG projections. And you go, okay, now that I have this lineup of all these single-digit owned players, and I have one spot and I have a receiver spot to fill, why don't I just play Michael Gallup there, being that he's going to, why not?
Nah, man, just full send low ownership. You got to go.
Right. So why not do that? So it's like, no, I can't do that. I have to play Elijah Moore instead, which on a 1v1 basis is like, well, why should Michael Gallup be like 5 times more owned than 10 times more? Okay, I could get that on that case. So no, but I can't play that. I got to play Elijah Moore. So you plug that in. And now the total, here's the total 114.69 at 33% ownership. Okay. Yeah. Would this be considered a milli maker lineup? Absolutely. But it's not even a good, like you're literally 114.69 compared to a stacked optimal is 37 points below. Meaning, so you're sacrificing. You know how many points 37 points is? Devontae Adams went 7 for 115 and 2 touchdowns, and that was 33.5 points. So it's like you're essentially seeding, like, I'm going to start, everyone else in the field starts with Devontae Adams with a 10-man lineup with Devontae Adams, and you have 9 players without him. Like, that's how drastically far down from a projection standpoint that you are with this type of lineup. Hence why if you simulate it 1,000,000 times, even at 33% total ownership, this lineup is not profitable.
I might be more impressed that he used $50K salary.
Yeah, all 50K. Yeah, got it.
That's incredible. This is a masterpiece. This is incredible. This is my favorite lineup I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, but the reason why I'm pointing this all out as we plugging people in and going down, like all it is projection and ownership. And like, yeah, I get like in the Millie Maker, we got to the point in which you had enough projection for the ownership like 3 swaps ago.
All we did was just do Cam Newton, Tommy Tremble, and Terry McLaurin, and you were basically fine.
Right. And you were fine, but I could understand maybe going a little bit. Like if we went through it before. If we took out and we just said, I want to play Cam Newton, but I don't want to play him naked, and I want to play Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
So let's say something like that. It's like I don't care. It's against the number 1 Bills defense. I'm going to play Jonathan Taylor. I don't care about his projection. And he just did that. Newton, Tremble, McLaurin, Taylor.
Yeah.
Which is at that point, like then you press the button, and there you go. 139 at 127. Wilson, Gallup, Adams, Dillon. And let's say you didn't want to play the cheap Gallup. Like you said, I think he's going to be overowned. Okay, so you X him out, and then you run it again. Right? Now you get the Panthers defense, which maybe you don't want to play the Panthers defense with the pass catcher or whatever, so you can get rid of him. Get rid of that. Seahawks. Okay, you got the Seahawks there. So you got Ingram, Wilson, Higgins, Adams, Taylor. I mean, like you could.
You're
109.
109. Yeah.
Right. This is at 139. Like this is fine. But let's say you don't want to eat the Higgins chalk. Like you think in terms of I don't want to eat the chalk. So it's like, well, you could play the Higgins chalk, like, but maybe you don't. Okay, so you X him out. And now you get Landry, right? And the Browns defense. I don't want to play a chalky defense. Okay, I can understand that. Okay, so you X that out. Right? Right. Now you're getting the Jets. And you're getting Landry. It's like, oh, I don't think Landry has any upside. Okay, fine. Okay, so you don't play Landry, even though he projects like that. Fine, right? Right, you go. Now you press it again, and sometimes it gives me too many players, right? So let me reload this. Right, and here we go. You got Renfro. Here's a lineup that's 137, 111. Ingram, Wilson, Renfro, Adams, Washington defense. Oh, you don't play Washington defense against your own quarterback. Okay, so we got to, okay, don't want to do that, even though you could, but I mean, so now we're going to press it again. Now we got the Jets defense. And there you go. Like, what's wrong with this? Like, this is a Millie line. Like, I'm looking at a Millie line right here.
Yeah.
You're getting such low ownership on Newton, McLaurin, Tremble, Taylor, like just play Adams. Just play Adams. Play Wilson and Ingram. Or Dillon, or play 2 of those. I mean, like that's what I mean by like this lineup would be in the Millie Maker. Probably if we ran it out 100,000 times or whatever, this would be a profitable lineup. And look at the total projection is 137. The one on the lineup
points below or so. That's
right. It's like at this point, it's like. Oh, you're at this point. It's like, oh, well, no, I need to drop another. What was it? Another 22 points in projection?
It was 20 points in projection. It was down to like
117, 115, something like that. I mean,
33% aggregate ownership.
Right. It's like you don't have to.
Like the other part of this, and coming from somebody who like doesn't use the industry aggregate, like I couldn't even look at his thing and be like, oh yeah, for sure, he had this projected higher than aggregate stuff. I mean it was just absolutely thrown together.
Right. This is not a lineup that looks at projections at all. It's someone bangs their head against the keyboard and gets there.
Yeah.
That's the key point. But I wanted to go through and show you why that's the case.
Yeah.
Not to rag on why he won $1 million and I did. Like has nothing to do with that. It's just this is a teaching show. And with 207,000 lineups in the contest, like that's that. Why do you think the Millionaire Maker is a plus EV contest for most people? Realizing that EV is ridiculously hard, but there's so many of those types of line. Look at look. Here's one of his other lineups: Huntley, McCaffrey, Carter, Hill, Brown, Landry, Bates, Collins, Seahawks. And this projected better. Right, like this lineup, at least it's like, okay,
Like, we even had to X out Jarvis Landry.
Right, which I didn't mind. I played Jarvis Landry. I didn't mind Jarvis Landry, but I could see how someone saying you don't want to play. Okay. But this lineup, like if we go through this lineup versus even this lineup.
Yeah, this one's actually good.
Cam Newton, Tommy Tremble,
Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, David Montgomery.
You got four high ceiling wide receivers. You got Dillon, you got Montgomery to be different over there, and he projects well.
Got AJ Brown getting 40% of the targets. You got Tyler Lockett, who projected very, very well for me. Like,
yeah, same for me. Right. I mean, like this lineup, like if this lineup won, I'd be like, well, there's no correlation. There's barely any. There's no run back or correlation. Who cares? But you play high ceiling players, and then you got there. Right. This other lineup with I would say Michael Carter's kind of okay, but he didn't project horribly.
Yeah.
Right. And I look at this lineup and go, okay, went cheap at quarterback and took the Huntley route and went, okay.
Did he go to that second lineup? Oh no, he didn't. It looked like he was doing running back and defense correlations with every single lineup.
Yeah, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But those two lineups, it's like, okay, the projection and ownership would make sense. And then you look at the last lineup and you go, how the hell you get here?
This doesn't even look like the other two lineups outside of him.
It's not. I want to make it clear. Who can correlate? Oh, it's not correlated. That's not what makes a good lineup. The number one thing is projection. The number one thing by far. Correlation and leverage are byproducts of how do I not play high projected lineups because other people are playing high projected lineups. Correlation is a way to make a boost of 3-5% on your lineup because one event happens and the other event happens. But you're not going to sacrifice 70 points of projection for the sake of correlation. So if you have a lineup that projects well, that has low enough ownership, who says you don't need correlation? So the fact of like, oh, well, in these other lineups, he didn't have a run back. Who cares? The problem I have with this lineup is not at least he had a run back. Oh, great. At least he had a run back in a lineup that was 40 points lower projected than any other line. Like, no, it's projected poorly. Right? It's just like the lineup in and of itself. I would never get this low, even in the milli maker. That's what I said. Like in some of these lineups that we're building over here, like if I include all, or it's all like for the milli maker, like this, the top optimal, like with just if I just ran it is 152 based on my aggregate, 154.72. If you were to say you were going to play a lineup that's 130 in the milli maker, I'd say, okay, I could see that 130.
Especially because you're probably dropping your ownership way down into like the 110, 115 range.
Right. And you're stacking and correlation kind of takes away a little bit of projection.
Yep.
But if you told me you're playing a lineup and it's 110, 115, I'd be like, what? These are like, no, like even at 33% owner, no, I'd like you're sacrificing a Devontae Adams ceiling game from the get-go, like sacrificing 24 points. Yeah, that's kind of what it takes to win the milli, right? I can get that. Sacrificing 45 points is just okay. Hopefully no one else gets there, and you have the perfect combination. And there you go. That's what happened. And there you go.
That's the thing that happened.
Right.
I think this week it was. We have one or two of these weeks every year in NFL where, like, if you made good decisions, you're just screwed. And I think that a lot of people, like, they struggle, that these kinds of weeks are, in my opinion, the weeks that ruin DFS players. Because there's going to be people that, like, look at this week and they will anchor to it for the rest of their lives that you shouldn't play the chalk. And that
shouldn't play the chalk, that you need like all 1% on players. Like,
my point is that people will take this week and they'll use it to justify and back up any bad decision that they will ever make in the future.
Right. You remember that one week where we're all single legit owner guys won on that's what I'm doing. Right.
Yeah. They're like, oh, well, it worked that time. Like, there's no reason it can't work in the future. It's like,
yeah, but people also do it the opposite way. Also, remember, like, there are plenty of people that's like, the chalk hits, and actually chalkier lineups this season have hit more often than not.
They have, yeah.
Right, they have. So a lot of people are like, what's the point of being contrarian? I'm just going to jam like 5 or 6 of the chalk players and find differentiation because that's apparently what's winning. So some people anchor to that and they go, I'm never going to play. And like, they go, I'm just going to play the 3 top running backs in all my lineups and just like, I'm going to play chalky cash lineups. And I'm like, that's a bad way to play also.
Yep.
Or they hang on. Or what more people do is it's the sign at the roulette wheel, right? Yeah. Of all the numbers. Is this the chalk hitting week or is next week the chalk hitting week? It's like, or I played all the chalk this week and all the contrarian, and then they say, I'm never going to play chalk again. And the next week you play a ton of contrarian plays and then the chalk hits and you go, I never get, whenever you hear the term, anyone say, I never get X right, you're talking to a poor DFS player. Because there's no such thing as you never get whatever. You should get it as right as any normal frequency. You should get it right. There's no such thing as right or wrong. Is that compared your lineup with its projection and ownership? Is it worth it for the contest that you're in? Other than that, you're just playing those types of lineups like every week.
Yep.
Sometimes they can. I ended up with a lot of David Montgomery. Okay. Did it mean that I didn't get David Montgomery? No, I just he projected with his ownership and he fit into more lineups than AJ Dillon, right? At more ownership. And I got different elsewhere in those lineups. And didn't mean I didn't play AJ Dillon. He was in other lineups, right? I mean, how come I didn't get Christian McCaffrey in lineups? Because I didn't get him. Because I never get Christian McCaffrey. I don't think in terms of those things, right? I played San Francisco lineups, but I didn't have Ayuk in them. I didn't have a Garoppolo, Ayuk, Samuel lineup because I wasn't going to play 2 wide receivers from the 49ers in the same lineup when I already have Jeff Wilson and George Kittle to fill a running back in a tight end spot. So if I do those things long-term, I make money. I'm profitable in NFL DFS. I mean, but that also means in GPP, especially out of an 18-week season, you're going to lose 16, you're going to lose 15, 16 of the weeks.
You could lose all of them.
You could lose all of them. But I mean, on average per season, I'm going to lose 85+% of the time in GPP, right? 90% of the time. So in an 18 week slate, even if you count Thanksgiving and a playoff slate, let's say 20, and you lose 90% of the time, that means that you lose 18 slates and win 2, right? And you hope that the 2 that you win a lot. And you hope that the 18 that you lose, you're only losing a small amount.
Yep. And that's also why you need to be playing Showdown. And that's a joke. You don't actually need to be playing Showdown. But yeah, you need to make sure that you're making decisions long-term. I think the problem that a lot of people have is that they look at slates as individual pieces and like they focus on the results of individual slates rather than focusing on each slate being part of the larger season. So people will see something that happens this week, all 1% owned players wins the Millie Maker. And they're like, oh, well, maybe I should try that. And it's like, no, you probably shouldn't try that. You should probably just stick to the thing that you think is going to be best. You're going to stick to high projections. You're going to stick to pivoting in a couple different spots. And you're going to go with that throughout the season. And then you can reassess at the end of the season. Like people who reassess in the middle of the season based on like an outcome of one slate, especially in the NFL, it's just super dangerous. We only have 18 to 20 actual slates to end up trying to win. It's not like baseball where we have, 5 months of just games and games and games and games and games. You can make adjustments and you can make some pretty drastic changes halfway through the season if you think that you're going down a wrong path. In NFL, you really got to figure out what your process is and don't overreact to news or don't overreact to outcomes that happen in the middle of the season, especially when slates have such extreme outcomes. So it's one thing if like this week, if maybe the Chiefs game went off and then let's say the Bengals game went off and the Chiefs game sucked, but like some of the chalk went well. And then you're like, oh, well, I wasn't on that, so I need to be playing less of the chalk. You can take that in one way or another. But in a slate like this, where everything is hilariously out of whack, if you're trying to take anything from this last slate in terms of like roster construction and process, Just move on. Just move to next week.
People want to know, James, before we get out of here, the projection of the week.
Projection of the
That's
week.
the thing now. So there's a couple of people are like, why are we even bothering with that? Right? All you're doing is arguing over whatever, but it's become such a meme that I need to
We have fun with it. Who doesn't want to have fun?
I think it's fun. I think
it's fun too. Projection of the week this week.
Can I guess? Is there a guessing?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Do you think I would be able to guess it? Or is it really weird?
Yeah, I think you'd be able to guess it. I don't. Is
it a situation where where the team situation has changed this week?
No.
Oh, so I'm team situation meaning that like someone's. That's why I said like Rashard Higgins.
Well, yeah, okay. So Sammy Watkins, I had him projected high, but then I like went in and told the Discord and like told everybody like, hey, this is high. I can't get it to drop with Huntley coming in because they don't talk to each other. So like it was high originally, and then I told everybody don't actually do that.
Right, so, because you probably in your model, probably when you put Huntley in, it's basically using Huntley with Lamar Jackson's efficiency.
So not exactly, but kind of. It's kind of like that. So the thing that would affect Watkins and Huntley and those guys the most would be a serious drop in Vegas projection, but it didn't drop that much. So I'm going to omit that one. We're going to redact that one. The other one, I did play this person and it was a high upside situation. So I'll give you 5 guesses. It's wide receiver.
5 guesses? But it's not from a team that has changed, like injury wise or nothing.
Nope. Not this week.
Not this week?
Yeah.
What position?
Wide receiver.
Okay.
We always do wide receiver.
Right. Typically it's wide receiver. Okay. I'm gonna take a look. Is it one of the Carolina receivers?
No.
Okay. That's guess number 1. Is it Tyler Lockett?
It is Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, but I had Tyler Lockett. I had Tyler Lockett, median projection, aggregate 16.22.
I had him at 20.
So that isn't that dramatically. I think 20 is
aggressive. Okay. All right.
I thought it's aggressive, but I don't find that to be that hilarious.
I thought that one was crazy. Like I looked at that one and usually I can like kind of just pull out the crazy one. And I thought that one was wild. We can do another one, I guess, since that's anticlimactic as hell to like have that. Let's do a cheap one. This guy's under 4K.
Under 4K.
Under 4K.
Wide receiver?
Wide receiver, yeah.
Was it Marcus Johnson?
No.
Was it? Well, I got Marcus Johnson, Rashad Higgins, under 5K, under 4K.
Under 4K.
Under. So not at 4K, but under.
No, not at. Under 4K.
Oh, I know who it is. I know. Quez Watkins.
No. Actually, no. This one isn't even that crazy either. It's Marquez
Valdez-Scantling, MVS.
I have him at 11, and that's not even that crazy.
What, MVS you talking about?
Yeah,
I had 8.2. Okay. I mean, 11. I mean, yes, it's aggressive.
What a boring week. Okay.
But not crazy. That's why I said when you said Lockett at 20, I'm like, I think that's overprojected, but I'm not.
No.
Like he projected much better than his owners. Like I like the Seattle wide receivers. So like I had nothing against Lockett. Would I put him if I put him at 20, I would have had him in like 80% of my line. I mean, he would have ended up in so many because he would have projected as good as Deebo Samuel for $1,800 less. He would have projected 1.5 points lower than Tyreek Hill for $2,200 less.
Well, and that's why I thought that he was the weird one because like I had him projected really, really well. And I thought
but around the industry he was, but I'm just saying like on a normal week like this, maybe he'd only project for 14.5. Yeah. And now he projects for 16.5. And you had him at 20. Like if this was a week where he projected at like 13 or 14 and you had him at 20, I'd be saying that you're ridiculous. But like you're mentioning like in my aggregate right here, based on a salary adjusted plus minus what RGV stands for, Lockett is 5th. So for me to call you crazy, I can't call you crazy because I had him 5th in line. I had him similar to Jamar Chase.
My top 5 were Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Lockett.
So say that again.
Devontae Adams,
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
Jamar Chase,
Yeah.
T. Higgins,
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett.
Okay. And Deebo Samuel's probably right underneath that.
No, Deebo Samuel's lower because remember I weight touchdowns really, really heavily.
Okay. Yeah,
and
but
I can't expect him to have a rushing touchdown and 48 rushing yards.
Yeah, but still, you're mentioning all the guys in your model that you're mentioning are right in the aggregate that I have right in front of me.
Yeah, I was
maybe not in that exact order, but I mean, it's still up there.
Yeah,
and the same thing and the same thing for running backs. It's like we don't have that. There wasn't that dramatic of a difference between how you projected things and how the industry did.
Yeah, and that's why I ended up on such heavy chalk on my stacks this week too. I didn't have any stands to really take. Like when I looked through my models, when I looked through ownership, I'm like, if I want to get different in my projection set, I'm going to have to give up 20 points in median.
Yeah, but you're giving up knowing that you're not that compared to the industry.
Right. And that means that I'm going to give up like 50 on the industry projection set. I'm like, I can't do that. I'll be different on my secondary stuff. I'll be different in my roster construction, but it was a week where I just knew going into it that like I was going to be on chalk and I was fine with that. That there's some weeks that are like that. Even as a contrarian player, like there's weeks where you just have to be like, I'm with the industry this week. Like hopefully it doesn't suck, and then it sucks.
Jacob Calloway says 25% increase on a median is pretty substantial. It's not crazy, but it's not nothing. Well, that's how I put it though.
Yeah.
The standard, your baseline from when we started this bit was to the point of stupidity. So
it was hilarious. But remember, we started this bit so early in the season that my models didn't have a chance because they're so short term. Of course, when we're that early in the season, it's going to be like, oh yeah, Quez Watkins for 48 fantasy points. But now that we're like midway through the season, my model's like, oh yeah, it's sitting there smoking like a pipe with monocles on. Like, oh yeah, I'm not crazy anymore. I'm down here. I'm sitting by the fire, and I just have these projections in line with the industry now.
Right. I mean, and at least it's someone that I had projected well, just not as well. It's not like if you told me I scroll down and you're like, you know who I had at a 18-point projection? AJ Green. I'm like what? How did that happen? Right. It's like, oh, Byron Pringle, 22. It's like, what? That's obviously wrong. Zay Jones, 17. What?
The Byron Pringle one, if I would have had him starting, he might have hit like that top. No.
What's for the Chiefs? What's starting? That's a Hill, Kelsey, and then a bunch of people that rotate in and out.
Yeah. But yeah, this is what happens. Like, and the other point to kind of make here is like, even when we come into these like weird projections, the projection difference usually, even though it can sound weird, like, yeah, Tyler Lockett is 5 points above what the industry standard is. It's still like when we look at the top 10 wide receivers, and this is for most weeks, like when we look at the top 10 wide receivers that I would play in my models versus the top 10 wide receivers that would play in the industry, there's usually a lot of overlap. Like there's usually like 7 or 8 players that overlap. And that's kind of like the point that I make here and that I always say. The projections can be to a point subjective, but the players and the plays that you need to be making, those need to be very similar outside of just a couple like weird ones that you can sprinkle in there or throw in. The Donovan Peoples-Jones things, like you're not going to have Donovan Peoples-Jones projected that well across the industry, but having him as a one-off when there are 9 other players out of the top 10 that are the same, it's like, okay, I'll take a stand there because the rest of the stuff is the same.
I'm surprised you didn't have any Browns. I was fully expecting Rashard Higgins to be the play because the DPJ was out and Anthony Schwartz was out and the Browns had a 27 implied team total. And I'm going, okay, I'm going to come. I know it's going to be James, Rashard Higgins, 17 points, 18 points. He was in 2 out of 3 of my lineups, like I was expecting him or Landry, or you just give it all to Landry 20 points type of thing.
No, because the Browns, like at this point in the season, we mostly just know who the Browns are. And that game, it had a really low total. Browns were massive favorites. So like the rushing expectation was really, really high. The ADOT on Rashard Higgins is not that high compared to somebody like Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I'm not going to have it like the guys that usually end up being a really high projection are those guys that are super volatile. And they have a really, really high ADOT. So Quez Watkins.
Well, hold on. But Tyler Lockett ain't that.
No, he is, though. He has been the last 4 weeks. Go look it up. He's been a massive ADOT guy. I had to drop his ADOT.
Yeah, but we know from on average for the past like 4 years.
So
but of
yeah,
course,
absolutely.
because your model, if it's past 4 weeks, it's like I don't know what happened past a month ago.
No. But like it wants to wait more recent samples. It uses the full year, but it wants to wait more recent samples. And Tyler Lockett has had like his ADOT has been like 16 or something. It's been crazy.
That's because it's the mean, not because it's the median.
Right. But I talked about it like DK Metcalf is usually the guy that you expect to be that in that offense. And he just straight up hasn't been. I mean, DK Metcalf has had weeks where his ADOT, and granted, of course, there's Geno Smith in the sample. But like DK Metcalf has had an ADOT of like 6 some of these past weeks, which is crazy.
Yeah, but like I said, because you're going by mean, not by median. Like Lockett's median is lower.
Right.
But his mean is high because Lockett the past 4 weeks has I think he has like 3 catches of over like 50 or 60 yards.
Yeah. It's
so
hilarious.
like his mean looks good, but his mean, like there's 3 of those, and then there's a lot of under 10. And Metcalf, on the other hand, has a higher median. His mean is low because
across the entire season, yeah.
Right, because those 3 passes to Lockett normally would go to Metcalf. And he just hasn't gotten those passes. So like his average, like if you look at median wise, he has more catches that are Metcalf, even the past like 6 weeks, has more catches over 15 yards, but doesn't have a 60-yarder because Lockett has like 2 or 3 of them.
Right. Yeah.
So by the mean ADOT, Lockett has a higher mean ADOT the past smaller sample size, but his median is actually very similar, only because it's really lopsided by 2 or 3 passes.
DK Metcalf is sitting at like 11 or something. And Tyler Lockett is sitting at, I think I ended up at like 14 or something. It wasn't.
But that's only because of 2 or 3 specific passes this season. Like you take out those outliers.
Yeah, and it's gonna be lower.
And then his median is down to 6 or 7.
Right. But like I'm not gonna take out outliers.
Yeah, of course I understand that. I'm just saying that to say that, oh, well, Lockett is now the high ADOT receiver.
And that's not what I'm implying at all either. Like, I think that it's going to go back to normal. But like that's what I'm saying is like these guys who end up having really high ADOTs and end up having like these really wide ranges. It usually like those are the guys that end up being the weird ones. That's why I thought Tyler Lockett was going to be the weird one, but he wasn't. And that's fine.
Well, if you want James's weird ones, that's what you should call them. You should call that should be your thing.
I'm going to rebrand next year.
James's weird ones.
I need to start writing. No, I'm going to start writing an article. It's going to be a free article. It's going to be called James's Weird Ones.
Right.
And it's just going to be like the weird ones.
Right. Just the weird ones.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you have to do. PayDirtDFS.com, PayDirtDFS. As always, you can pick up the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. And we got Showdown. We got stuff tonight. I'll be on NBA Grinders Live. I'll be on the NFL Pre-Lock Show later today. So that's coming up at like 5:10, weird time, 5:10 Eastern, and then 7:30 Eastern for NFL Showdown. So hit that notification bell to know when we go live. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here, and hit those thumbs while we're on your way out the door. And I will see you tomorrow. I don't know, just NBA, NFL stuff. I don't know. We'll talk about whatever. It always has to do with you guys in the YouTube chat, as always, answering your DFS strategy questions, as always, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.